All right. Today I'm here with a very special guest here, and Kaitlyn is a very good friend of mine. I feel like she's somebody who's always trying to share messages that's coming deep from her heart. And I've been watching her videos, and I feel like a good word to describe her would be an alchemist, because I feel like she's always taking out messages from her past, trying to use her experience, even like the bad ones, to make it better in her life. So, welcome to the video, Kaitlyn. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you. That was such a nice introduction.
I know, right? You're probably not expecting
I
that.
appreciate you so much for having me and talking with me. We've had some great conversations, and I also see you as an alchemist as well. I think we've both learned from our past experiences and have gained wisdom through it. And I love that we both feel called to share it with other people.
Definitely. I think
Yeah.
call is definitely the right word, because we're basically following the path of our hearts in a way, I feel like, and that's why I feel like we really resonate with everything that we put out, with each other's stuff too.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, how's everything been going for you? What you've been working on
Yeah,
currently?
it's been waves of, some days I wake up feeling great and other days I wake up feeling like I just want to curl in a ball and hide from the world. But I try and honor myself no matter how I'm feeling, because however I'm feeling, I think it has something to tell me, kind of a message in it. And so I've stopped resisting my bad days, and instead I'm asking whenever I feel kind of down or um, depressed or anxious, I just go in and try and see what that feeling is trying to tell me instead of try and find ways to avoid it. So I never really have an all good or an all bad day. It's just kind of a mixture of everything, but I'm learning to ride those waves. How
That's
are you doing?
awesome. Yeah, doing pretty good. Just like you're saying, I feel like the shadow work almost becomes a very important aspect of our personal development. And if you guys don't know what shadow work is, it's basically being in touch with the parts that you don't necessarily like about yourself, but kind of using them to transmute that energy into something good, right? And that comes back to being an alchemist in a way, right? But yeah, I've been kind of going through some phases too, just learning about things that you could almost call it like limiting beliefs too, and just learning more about them and trying my best to kind of transmute them into something better. So like sometimes of the week I was also having like really difficult time earlier last week, and but right now I think I'm in a good place, kind of in touch with myself, and like it always is feels great when you come back to the present moment, and I think that's always that becomes like a struggle sometimes, and that's really not a good place to be, because the present time is always here, right? It's not like it's gone anywhere, but our minds go somewhere else, and we have to keep trying to bring it back, although I wish that was the default, but it's not for most of us, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the present moment is where the magic happens. And that's actually something I kind of went through last weekend. As I realized on this journey, I'm so focused on like where I want to be. I'm like, oh, I want to become this, I want to be healed, and where I want to be career wise, that I'm not slowing down to kind of enjoy the present moment. And so finally I decided to just slow down. And that's when all the magic started to happen and I started getting epiphanies.
Mm.
I'll actually share something that really helps me get grounded into the present when I'm feeling super flighty or like
Okay.
my head's all over the place is I go within. This can just be like a 3-minute practice, and I try and focus attention on each of my senses. So I'll focus on what I see for a bit, what I hear, smell, taste, and then I really take a lot of time to focus on what I feel. So, if I'm walking, I try and feel the earth beneath me and feel all the clothing on myself, feel a nice breeze, feel the hair on my head, all of that. It just really grounds you in to your body and in the present, and it can just be done in a few minutes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's something I love to do.
Right. That sounds so simple and elegant too. It's like you don't need anything. You don't need to listen to any music. You don't need to listen to any meditations or anything like that. And that's so so easy to do, right? So I feel like even like the guys who are watching right now, they could definitely benefit out of just trying to tune into their senses a little bit more, right? That's such an easy thing to do, but I think we're often disconnected with the present moment that way, and we're basically trying to like ruminate a lot in our minds. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love that you do that. Like it's such an easy
Yeah.
thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it as we're here on earth to experience the world through our five senses. And so kind of, when you're not in the present moment, you're really in your head. But when you're in the present moment, when you are in the present moment, you're really in your body and focusing on how your body feels through your senses. And so and struggling with being in the present moment is something a lot of people struggle with, myself included. So it's very normal, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's
No.
lots of techniques to ground you back in.
Yeah, it's very normal. I think there are only a few people who are actually always living in the present moment. I know like Eckhart Tolle, Sadhguru, very few guys, even a lot of guys that we might think like they're like highly spiritual. I don't really think that they're out of this, the trap of not being in the present moment. But if you feel like you're the only one, I'm just saying that you're not the only one. A lot of us feel that way.
Yes, yes. Most everything you go through is normal. A lot of people just don't talk about it, so we feel like we are the only ones. But
Mm.
yeah, even all those people we really look up to and admire, and we think they're like spiritual gurus, they still have their own things they're working with, their
Right.
own layers they're peeling through, and to get to where they are now, they had to go through some stuff as well. So
Yeah.
no one's perfect.
Yeah, no one's perfect.
Mhm.
So, Kaitlyn, I wanted to, because I saw that your Instagram name is Awaken with Kaitlyn, and like I feel like there's still a lot of people in my channel who probably don't know what awakening is because I don't talk about it very openly. Although, I mean, I've had my own awakenings in the past. Like, so what does awakening mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Awakening to me mainly means awareness of your thoughts, your patterns, your emotions, the way you live, basically. It's just I think awareness is key. Awareness is like 90% of healing. And it's also becoming aware of the conditions society has taught us growing up, as well as our familial childhood conditions and all of that. And it's just awakening to the realization that all of this is kind of a lie, like it's kind of, I don't know if you've seen The Matrix.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that movie. All three parts. I probably watched like 10 times already. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I see it, is I think that we are all born whole and complete and perfect and full of love and light, and then we're just born into this society that's very wounded, and there's so many conditions and rules and restrictions, and very slowly we start to learn that we're not good enough. I think that's kind of like the collective wound that everyone has, is like they think that they're not enough.
Yeah.
And so we start to take on these beliefs, these limiting beliefs, kind of like you were mentioning, like I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough. And that's influenced by, family, school, through the media. And awakening is essentially coming to the realization that that's all a lie, and that we are whole and complete and full of love. And it's integrating all of these parts of ourselves that we abandoned to kind of fit in with society. And essentially awakening, I don't see it as something that you need to go searching for to find. It's already within you. It's just returning home to yourself and shedding all of these other people's beliefs and conditions, and just returning home to your true authentic self. And some of that is kind of darkness and shadow work, and it's integrating all of these parts of yourself that you think are bad. And it's just learning to make peace with them and understand them and shed light to them. So, but yeah, just primarily awareness, I would say, is a lot of
Where,
awakening.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's kind of all over the place,
No,
but
I think that was a great answer. Yeah, I think that was a great way to just encapsulate that into just a few minutes, and I totally agree with that. I feel like it's being aware of yourself as well as the social conditioning in the like that we've been like put into, right? Like when we grow up, I mean, I think we're now transitioning into a more like a green society as in spiral dynamics, right? But before we're pretty much like being raised up in conformity and things like that, where people are given beliefs and ideas where they had to follow without questioning. And like I think most of us grew up that way without being able to question things outside of ourselves. And once we start to see all these things happening from a different lens, I guess we're just basically leaving that old lens behind. And after that, when we start seeing it from a different lens, it just seems so ridiculous that we're following things that's not even like, it's not the absolute truth, but people make you believe like it's truth. And it's very disorienting, right? I mean, at least that's what it felt for me when I first had my own awakenings.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just society tells you, okay, you're born, you go to school, you get a job, you have a family, you retire. That's it. And it's
Mm.
like, is that really what we're here for? I think a lot of awakening is also questioning everything you've been told. It's like, who says that this is what I have to do? Who says this is how I have to live? Like I kind of feel like living that way is just being in a prison. And awakening is essentially learning how you can just be free and authentic and do what you love. Like you can do what you love and make a living from it. You can be free. You can travel the world. Whatever you want to do, it's possible. Like if you thought of it, it's possible. It's out there. It's just society that tells you and puts you in this little box that you can't do it. And so it's becoming aware of that and working through that and letting go of what no longer resonates with you.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So, how did if you want to share, like, if you are free to share, like, how did your awakening happen, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it was definitely layers. Also sorry for this light. It's kind of bouncing. But
It's kind
um
of doing that, like, Gaudi effect in your room right now. Like, yeah,
yeah, well, we'll call it that.
yeah.
My awakening definitely happened in layers. So I would say at first it happened. I was on magic mushrooms and I had this whole new perspective on a lot of things. And basically I had like a lot of mental illnesses growing up and just a lot of like insecurities and issues and things and my own type of trauma, but I was never aware of it. I just thought that that's normal. I just thought that that's how it was because when we get it all the time, we're used to it and we just think that's how it is. And so um I was on shrooms and then I realized, okay, wait, a lot of this is kind of not normal, not okay. And I had some realizations that I needed to change. I was partying a lot, drinking a lot, um, doing all that kind of stuff, and I realized that I needed to stop doing that as much. And so I kind of started eating healthier. I started partying less, and I started meditating more. And I kind of got interested in spirituality and that kind of concept. And I just remember it kind of like it drew me in. I was super interested, and I just remember I was like, oh, this is great. Like spirituality is all butterflies and rainbows, and I think that's how it like captured me. And it was like we got her. And then I got into a relationship, and it was pretty chaotic, um, but I believe it was everything it needed to be. He mirrored back to me a lot of my wounds, my childhood issues, my insecurities. He wounded back to me my shadow self that I never even knew was there. All of these wounds and issues that I had no idea. He essentially mirrored it and it all came to the surface and was like playing out. So it was very chaotic. A lot of pain, but a lot of learning. And then when we broke up, that is kind of what I feel like our breakup was. I needed to be shattered. open so that I could rebuild myself. And so when we broke up, I just went through a very long, dark phase of inner work, and I was kind of in like the hermit phase. So this is where I was starting to notice and have awareness on like my childhood conditions, my attachment patterns, my attachment styles, just patterns in the way I act. And I was just becoming aware of all my wounds. So they were just coming to the surface, playing out. It was very dark, very messy, but it was everything it needed to be. So it was just it was a lot of shadow work, a lot of bringing light to all that darkness that I had hid away for so long. And it's definitely, it's like an onion, you know, I'll work through something and think I'm good, and then another layer will come. But the breakup was not necessarily about him. It was more about everything that he represented, all the wounds that he triggered and stuff. So he was a beautiful trigger for me to just do some inner work. And I kind of went through a dark night of the soul. I'm not sure if you know what that is, but it's
I
just,
know what that is. Yeah.
it's a really dark, hard period, but it's kind of like a death and a rebirth. It was everything it needed to be. And I was getting triggered left and right constantly, but I started to finally see those triggers as a blessing, because I was getting triggered so I could see what I needed to work on and what I needed to heal. And I started seeing everybody who was triggering me as like a compass. And sometimes I would get really annoyed or just hurt by people. And I realized a lot of it was because I was doing that to myself. So, you know, if I felt like someone would abandon me, I realized, well, I abandoned my authentic self so that I can fit in to society. And so it was just a lot of mirroring and darkness, but it was everything it needed to be. So yeah, it was kind of phases. And I think that it'll be a never ending self-discovery journey, but yeah, that's kind of my awakening.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sometimes, yeah, life takes you through a like hard path, you know. It's so unexpected, and it starts throwing all these like bricks and stones on your way.
Mhm.
And it's just part of the journey, and it's necessary actually, you know. Even though we might think that, you know, it would be better if we'd avoid it, like if we avoid it, there's no growth in there, right? And
Exactly.
there is, yeah, you might be living more unconsciously, but you know, I mean, you're probably like you know, suppressing your emotions with drugs and alcohol and things like that,
Mhm.
but you're never actually experiencing the life to its fullest, right? So I feel like a little technical problem here, but I feel like everything that you
About
go
that.
through, it's pretty necessary. It's pretty necessary.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think so many people, they get caught up in like the why did this have to happen to me? But I'm starting to realize it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. It
Yeah,
happened for you so that you could like the saying, diamonds form under pressure, you know, it's kind of putting
yeah,
pressure, and it's forcing you to have challenges because you grow from challenges
yeah.
essentially. You know, if you were just to stay comfortable and peaceful all the time, where would that growth be? So
Right,
I
exactly.
see, yeah.
There's this book called Anti-Fragile, written by this, right? I forgot his name, but it's kind of based on Stoicism, and he basically talks about us human beings being as a coal, right? But we're we think that we're softer than a coal, and we think that we're some kind of like mushy elements that if we'd come under pressure that we just like squeeze and die, like maybe like a peach or plum or something like that. When somebody steps, you just like die. That's why we're afraid to go out there, like put ourselves out there and whatnot. But actually, in our like the core of our being, we're more like coal. Like the more pressure that we get turned into like shiny diamonds and things like that. You know, like the shinier we can get, the more pressure that we are able to handle.
Mhm.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and
That
I love
your
that.
journey of awakening, I felt like it was very beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, and I love what you said about the book and the coal. And I actually heard this from someone. They said wisdom is crystallized pain, which I
Mhm.
find very beautiful. So
Nice. Love that.
yeah. So thanks for asking me about mine. I'm curious about your awakening now. If you
Okay.
share any of it.
So I had a lot of awakenings since I started this journey. I'm gonna share probably like two of those like very briefly, just so you can get more context. So one definitely happened when I discovered this movie called The Secret. And I have talked about this in a couple of my other videos too, like the law of attraction and how to manifest and things like that. So basically what happened was one day, like at this time I was basically an escapist. Like I always wanted to escape my reality because I hated my life. And I didn't even know, to be honest, that I actually didn't want to be like living my own life that way. So we were always like smoking, partying, like smoking weed. So, and I had like really good friends at the time. This wasn't like a period where like I was surrounding myself with like crazy people or anything, but we were very like those guys were pretty self-aware, but at the same time, habit-wise, like we all did, like drinking and partying and things like that. So one day, like after this party, we're just sitting in this room, like there's like beer balls lying right in front of us, smoking like weed and stuff like that. And we had just like we were pretty worn out, I think, because at the time we were playing this thing called PlayStation Move, because it was kind of new back then when it first came out. So you need a lot of energy to play those like bowling balls or whatever, right? So we were pretty worn out, and one of my friends, like, he just like comes and he's like pretty high to, and he's like, "Hey man, I found this such a great movie and it's called The Secret," and he just started talking about like metaphysical. And what the hell is this guy talking about, like. But we are all pretty bored, so like, okay, also we were open to trying out new ideas. So we were like, okay, let's get it on. So we started watching it. So in the beginning, it just felt like a bunch of, like crap, like whatever, like people just talking about BS, and like it felt like common sense. It didn't even feel like just like lies or anything like that. It felt like it's all common sense, right? I mean, everybody knows this stuff, everybody follows this stuff, because I know, like, I'm like, me smoking joint is like, gonna give me some effect, and that's not something that I don't understand. But as I started watching it, like it just made me more wonder, and started talking about how we manifest our own realities and whatnot. And at one point, I got like so sucked into the documentary. Also, like the movie is made so beautifully, the music and everything's like really, really like grabs the attention in, right? So it kind of made me start. It made me think about my own life, where I had been using law of attraction without knowing it and manifesting things into my life. So there was one time when I was probably about like 13, 14 years old, when I had just like picked up guitars. And I was big fans of bands like Guns N' Roses, and like bands who were like really great guitar players and things like that. So Slash was my idol. So I used to think about Slash, and be in front of the mirror, and I used to play like the guitar, just wanting to be like him. And not just that, I would imagine myself being in front of like thousands of people, like playing, because it was just like I used to watch his like live concerts and whatnot all the time, and it was very inspiring, and I was like, I want to be that guy, I want to be that kind of like guitar player or whatnot. So that was when I was like 12, 13. But by the time I was about 6 months after that, like or maybe 6 to 8 months, I'd say, I was playing in front of like thousands of people, and I had barely started like playing guitars, and that was pure law of attraction, because I don't know how things came out to be. I was already like playing really, really well, and although it wasn't like really well to a great level, but I was like good enough to play a few songs, like really play lead and everything. And I was playing in front of like thousands of people, like opening for a bigger band back in Nepal. It was like pure law of attraction at work, and I didn't know it at the time, but that documentary kind of made me aware that that was possible. So it kind of started to make me conscious. Also, there was this one saying in the documentary where the guy Bob Proctor says that you don't have to know everything that happens in your life, because sometimes you're trying to grasp control over your reality, trying to understand everything in your life all the time, right? But he has this quote where he says that you don't know how electricity works, and electricity can cook a man's meal, but it can also cook a man. So he leaves it at that, and I'm like, wow, that's a great example, actually. Yeah, we don't know, like it lights up our house, it does a lot of things, but honestly, even I think the scientists who produce electricity or help in production of electricity, they don't actually understand what electricity is, just like gravity and other things, right? But there's so many of things that we don't know, and like it's okay to admit that we don't know a lot of things happen like that way, right? We're basically giving our power away, thinking that yeah, that's too spiritual, that's too metaphysical and things like that. So once that started coming into my awareness, I mean, I wish I was more determined, but I started reading books, but I wasn't like very determined. But you know, like that came into my awareness. I would try it like half-assedly, and you know, like I would manifest a few things here and there, and I'd be like, yeah, that's law of attraction right there, right? But at the same time, it wasn't like I wasn't like really fully into it. But that was my first awakening, and I also started seeing society and how it's like layered in structures where, like, you know, according to the finances, the income gaps and things like that. And also I started to see like how the upper level works. And I feel that a lot of people who get aware of these kind of structures, they kind of start basically revolting against the opposite side. But for me, it was more like a, okay, that's, if that's possible, I want to get there too, you know, like, okay, like how can I get up there if that's possible, right? So I started kind of like reverse engineering, you know, reading books and things like that. And so that's how my first start of, you know, like awakening journey started, basically with that documentary. Now the second one came maybe after like 5 6 years. It was like you know, after a while. Sometimes doing spiritual work is almost like opening up a can of worms, you know, and you're just trying to find like something good in there, but sometimes the only thing you find is like worms over there, right? And
Mm.
so for me, there was a time where I was basically just finding like darkness in myself and a lot of these, you know, like shadow aspects of myself. So I basically became even worse than when I started my journey from. And, you know, it was pretty painful time also, like just similarly to you, I had kind of gone through a breakup, and they kind of, you know, showed me a lot of bad aspects of myself, and which was pretty hard for me to learn. And that's when I started getting into more into the religious spirituality kind of stuff, where, you know, when I started to listen to guys like Ram Dass and I guess Eckhart Tolle, or even Abraham Hicks and people like that, who are more like spiritually inclined, not just like, you know, materialistic wise, right? Before I was just trying to approach everything from a scientific and psychological point of view, but I kind of wanted to like submit or surrender myself to this kind of spiritual path. So that's when my second level of journey began. So Ramdas often talks about using like how his journey started with psychedelics, and it always used to make me wonder. I mean, also like I don't want to like go too much into my history of like drugs and things like that, but I have done a lot of different kinds of drugs, and I feel like even every time I did drugs, it basically was always that fuel to get into the closeness to the infinity. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but even when I was smoking weed for the first time, it kind of made me feel that I kind of got to this place which felt a lot better, and you know, I always wanted to go to that same place after that. But you know, I was kind of hesitant at trying psychedelics at first, like LSD, but so somehow I found it after maybe a couple of years after I started listening to Ram Dass. When I tried to find it, it didn't come at all. Actually, yeah, we talked about this last time too, right? But yeah, when I was looking for it, I couldn't find. But all of a sudden, like, you know, I like it was there in front of me, and I was like, okay, let's try this. And basically, what happened was I had this ego death kind of experience when I did the LSD, and that was my second layer of awakening. And before that, all the things that I was reading, I had an awakening, but that awakening felt like such a minuscule part of my journey that it didn't even matter anymore, because I was only understanding things from a conceptual point of view. But when I had the awakening, like one of the first things I realized was, for the first time after maybe like years, maybe since I was a child, I was able to feel love for the first time, like in the core of my body, like in every cell of my body, you know. And I was just able to just let go of everything and just surrender, lay down in the grass, and I started looking up at the sky. And that was like one of the most beautiful experiences, you know, ever. And basically my ego, like I basically was able to completely detach from my ego, and there came this like higher self. I hope that makes sense, but
Perfect sense. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
Yeah, that's cool that we both kind of had two different layers, and we also both had experiences with psychedelics, which I think, they're not for everyone. So if it
Yeah.
resonates with you, it does. If it doesn't, that's cool. But yeah, I think there's something magical with plant medicines and stuff like that. All right, so I just have a question for you, and that is, do you have any tips for people that are just beginning to spiritually awaken? Or a way to rephrase that is, if you could go back and tell yourself anything at the time when you first began to awaken, what would it be?
Yeah, I feel like if I had to give myself a suggestion personally, I mean, I don't know what I would say to other people, but because I feel like everybody's journey is different, right? But for myself personally, I would just say that, once you have that kind of insight that there's a lot of things that you could change after getting this knowledge, try to start creating plan for yourself, like almost like a new identity. Because I remember the reason why I wanted to get in the path of awakening was so I could become better in my life, right? But I like that didn't initially happen because I was just lost. I didn't know what to do. But if I had just crafted a better plan for myself, I feel like it could have taken me so much further. And part of it is just creating a new identity for yourself, and I think that's what I would go back to do. Just try to imagine myself in a better future and whatnot. So I think that's definitely what I would suggest for myself.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. That's I think that's a huge part of it, is sometimes we get so caught up in what we don't want, that we need to shift the attention on to what we do want, who the life we want to create and who we want to become. So
Yeah,
awesome for sharing that.
yeah, of course. What would you give advice to your younger self?
Let's see. My advice would be to be patient and to be gentle with myself. I
Mhm.
think that I was so, part of me still is, I'm so focused on, like, I just want to be healed. I just want to, like, love myself. I just want to think I'm good enough. Da da da. I just want to be there. And I'd want to tell myself that healing doesn't happen overnight.
Mhm.
It's a long process, and to be okay with that, and to have patience with myself and for the journey, and just to, like, slow down and enjoy every moment while I can, because nothing will ever be the same. Like, no two moments will ever be the same. But yeah, I think I was just trying to rush through my spiritual awakening, and I was just like, I just want to be on the other side. But yeah, so I would tell myself, it's not going to happen overnight, but that's okay. Be patient, be gentle with yourself. Do you have any good, like, books or movies or podcasts or resources for anyone that's just starting to awaken?
Yeah, I probably have a lot of them. Yeah, one of the I haven't even read the books, but I've been learning more about spiral dynamics from like different YouTube videos, and I feel like if you want to get more of a conceptual point of view of awakening, I feel like spiral dynamics can be very helpful because it talks about this. It basically classifies, like these societies into different categories by colors, and which colors are pretty arbitrary, but it also talks about like how we human beings have evolved in consciousness, like from back in the day to right now, because we basically started from this stage which was beige, where people were pretty like animal like, they're basically hunting, gathering, that kind of stuff. But after that there were like other developments where they got to this place of like just conquering, killing each other to just like claim their land for themselves and whatnot. Then we got to this stage of color blue, which was a stage of conformity. We would stop because we had seen enough violence by this time. We're just like, okay, yeah, we need some kind of authority to bring it together, and we're just gonna follow whatever they say. And that's when like the religion started to become like really predominant in the society. And then we got into stage of entrepreneurship, which is stage orange, and that's when like when I guess not a lot of countries are still there yet, but at least America, like I think it's pretty like mostly in stage orange right now too, because a lot of like capitalism and that kind of things happening right now, where people are basically just creating and like being entrepreneurs to fulfill other people's need. And right now, I feel like we're in the stage screen, even as a collective, where we're starting to come back as a community and trying to think for a greater good. And I feel like a lot of people are experiencing this spiritual awakening, and there are a lot of people they're getting into it, and that's also part of human evolution. And you can see it from other perspectives like 5D shift and the great awakening and whatnot. But I feel like spiral dynamics is like a great tool to kind of help you understand that from a more conceptual point of view, and especially for a person like me who's I'm also like a little skeptical at heart, because I don't always believe whatever I hear out there. I like to do my research in a more like a concrete way rather than just like falling down to a rabbit hole and like watch documentaries and whatnot. So yeah, spiral dynamics, I feel like that's a great book that's probably gonna help you make sense of your own awakening too, because you can it's not just about the society too, because these different stages of colors that I just talked about, that's present in us as individuals too. Like for me myself, I started from probably stage blue red, where I had a lot of anger in me, like which comes from the stage red, a lot of like I can't do this, I can't do that, because what if people think that I'm like being bold or whatever, right? That comes from stage blue, which is conformity and things like that. Then I went through stage orange, which was all about like, okay, F this, F that, I'm just gonna create, I'm just gonna put my shit out there, and I'm gonna like make people buy, and like it becomes more like a service provider. And finally, like getting into stage green is like becoming aware of the whole, the unity of what's happening around, like where everybody starts to become more like, family to you, like, and
Hmm.
yeah. So I feel like it's a very great model like that you can follow. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation. Do you have any recommendations books wise or
Dynamics. I'm
resource?
gonna look into that actually. Funny that I asked that question because I don't. One of my favorites is really simple, but I think it's like a really good. There's like a lot of little pearls of wisdom in there. It's The Alchemist. I really like that book. And then on YouTube, how we actually connected is through Aaron Dowdy and Victor Odo. I
Right.
really like their work. If you guys want to
Love
ever
it.
check them
Yeah,
out.
definitely.
Um, but yeah, I just whatever you're interested in, that little calling that just really intrigues you, follow that, find books on it, YouTube videos, all that. So spiral dynamics, that sounds interesting. I'm gonna
Yeah.
look into it.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
But so yeah, Caitlin, before we log out of this, do you have any message for our viewers, or like how can they find you first of all?
Oh yeah, thanks for asking that. So my Instagram is Awaken with Kaitlyn, and then I have a YouTube, and it's just Kaitlyn Morse. I'm just starting to get new into there, but I'm starting to put more content out. So thanks for asking that.
Yeah.
Any message I have for people would be that you're not alone, you're not going crazy, and that you are already whole and complete. It's about just returning home to that. So that
Love
would
it.
be
That's
my.
beautiful.
Oh, and your authenticity is your greatest superpower. That's also mine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, also I'm gonna put the links down in the description below. So if you guys want to check her out, and please do check her out. It's going to be right there down below. And give her a follow, give her a subscribe on her YouTube channel. So like, we can help each other grow too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. We do plan to do this more. So if you have any recommendations on topics, we'd love to hear those. But yeah, it was good to talk to you as always. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah. Also, we are thinking of doing another video about masculinity and femininity and the difference in between. And that might be another interesting video that you guys might be looking forward to. So if you wanna see that, let us know down in the comment section below. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, Caitlin. I'm really honored to have you.
Awesome. It was an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.